So there's been a couple of topics kind of rattling around. So I'm just going to sit for a minute to see what wants to be talked about, what wants to be expressed or shared in this video. Feels like fixation is what's coming. And fixation as a pointer. Fixation as just a reflection of what's not free. And just, I suppose how fixation shows up, it shows up in so many different ways. But it's definitely a big indicator of where identity is still hanging on. So, perhaps where I'll start this is that, when I use a word like awakening, I know there's a lot of different ways that word is used. Some ways that it's used is, waking up from just the general insanity of society and seeing that it's, not actually the most fulfilling thing to be a part of society in the ways that we're conditioned to. So there can be an awakening from that. There can be an awakening into, like being a mature ego, an awakening into a more authentic life. But the way, when I use the word awakening, what I'm referring to is an awakening from the dream of separation. Awakening to the truth of your innate being, which you might call God or silence or emptiness. There's a little gnat buzzing around. And in that process of awakening, in the way that I use that word, there is a release from fixation. Fixation being, there's so many examples of this. So, I'll just give a few examples of ways that fixation has shown up in my own life historically and how that has shifted. So I guess fixation you could also call, like control, resistance. But ways that that's shown up for me in my life is there's, just a few examples. Previously, there was a big fixation with health, with healing, with becoming healthy, with healing my body. That was a very long-standing thing for me. Like really fixated on that to the point where it caused deep suffering. And caused some ways that manifested was really intense fixation on like fitness and like physical health, appearance, things like that. It manifested as fixation with food, deep fixation with food, and the way that manifested for me was in a pretty severe disordered eating. And for me, that was I was so fixated with health, and because that was a really big wound for me. There's a lot of wounding and trauma in my childhood around health and family members being sick, and autoimmune disorders in my family. So there was a really deep fixation with wanting to avoid that and with health, and that created immense suffering. And there's a deep fixation with and there was a deep fixation with eating foods that I deemed healthy, and just over time that my list of healthy foods was so narrow, and my list of unhealthy foods was very long, and there was deep suffering around food. There was deep fixation around food. I thought about food constantly. I thought about health constantly. I thought about, it's just the constant fixation on being healthy, on food, on eliminating the pain in my body, because I've also had, chronic pain issues throughout my adult life. So there was deep fixation with trying to make my body healthy, get rid of the pain. And in that fixation, suffering, there was deep suffering. And that's not to say that we shouldn't take care of our bodies, that we shouldn't manage pain in ways that we can. But it's just being honest with ourselves about how much space a part of our lives is taking up in our consciousness, how identified we are with something. I was very identified as someone who needed to be healed, who had health issues, very identified as trying to be someone who was healthy. And in that, there's deep fixation, deep suffering, really deep suffering. I was really fixated with love, with relationship, with being worthy of love. And that manifested as, various behaviors and patterns in human relating. There's deep fixation with control. When I was younger, that showed up as very OCD-like tendencies, and things had to be a certain way and be in a certain place, and even just like looking into my closet, things had to be organized in a certain way, and if it wasn't, there was deep suffering in that. So fixation is an indicator of where you're not free. And the confusion that I fell into with this, and I'll just use, health as an example, because that's one that was so long-standing for me, and just really had this ripple effect of suffering into every area of my life. And it was something that there was just so much energy in that fixation that it caused so much suffering. There was so much suffering that I experienced in that. I might have just forgotten where I was going with that. Give me a minute. Oops. So the confusion that I fell into with that was feeling like when I'm healthy, when my pain is gone, then I will be free. I will be free when this condition is met. I will be free when my life changes in this certain kind of way. I will be free when XYZ. That's a deep trap. Because freedom is not some future state. Freedom is what's here right now. It's the pain that's here right now. That pain is free. Because the fixation, whether we realize it or not, I didn't realize this at the time, but the fixation was seeking. It was constantly seeking for something other than what's right here. Constantly trying to change something about myself to finally be good enough, to finally feel good, to finally achieve some state. But that's the confusion. You know, there's still pain that happens here. This body is not, you know, it's not perfect. It has its quirks and flaws like all others. You know, this life is not free from challenge, but it's all free. The pain is free. The challenge is free. And dropping the fixation is coming to rest in now. Coming to rest in just what's happening. Just what's happening. And I remember hearing so many people say, like, it's just this. It's just what's happening. You know, people like Tony Parsons and Jim Newman, and you know, those people that are a little bit more like radical in their messages of non-duality. Like, it's just this. It's just this. And it is, but I couldn't understand what that meant. Because my mind was turning that into a concept. My mind was turning just this into some future thing. Like, oh, it'll be just this when. I couldn't understand what that meant. I was trying to grasp something. That's what fixation is. We're trying to grasp, trying to steer, trying to hold, trying to reach for something. But the freedom is in what is right here already. The freedom is in meeting what's already right here. Is in meeting that fixation. Like, if fixation's what's here, can you rest in that? Not resisting the fixation, because that's another trap. Oh, I shouldn't be fixated on this. That's just another fixation, fixating on the fixation. Resisting the fixation. It's more fixation. So if the truth of what's happening is that there's fixation, can you stop and rest in that? And just ask, like, can I be okay with this right now? Can I be okay with the fact that fixation is what's here right now? Can I just rest in that as that? Can I become the fixation without telling a story that it needs to be different? And then you can start to work backwards from there. Like, and then you can start to dig deeper. Like, what's under the fixation? It's almost always some sort of fear. Almost always fear. So we can be fixated about, like, so many things: food, money, relationships, security, stability, spirituality, awakening. So many things we can be fixated on. And underneath that fixation is always fear. So can you rest in the fixation and start to dig below the fixation? Okay, like, there's fixation here. Okay. Like, yes, there's fixation here. Can there be a yes? Yes, there's fixation here. Okay, can I, like, pause and see what's below that? What am I afraid of? So for me, in my own life, with the example of health, there was a fixation on health because there was a fear of being sick. A fear of being out of control. So the fixation was a way to try to manage my fear, a way to try to manage life. Fixation is a way to control, to try to control. It's an illusion, but that's how it manifests. So when I see fixation, it's very clear what's happening with that. So you can dig down into underneath the fixation. So what's actually happening under the fixation? Okay, maybe there's fear. So what's that about? Can I just sit and meet that and say yes, that there's fear here right now, and feel that? And maybe there will be a story with that, you know? Maybe there will be some beliefs that emerge through the meeting of that. Some, maybe memories from the past. And this is also a trap that I fell into pretty hard, is to discount that stuff, to discount that fear, to discount the stories, to discount the beliefs and say, well, that's not true. And yet here it is. If it's not true, okay, so here it is. To say it's not true, to discount it, is another form of resistance. And that might be a spiritual fixation, or a fixation with non-duality, a fixation with trying not to be somebody when in actuality, there's a deeply held belief that you're somebody. It takes a great deal of honesty and earnestness and humility to really see that clearly. And to be honest with oneself, I've had to do that many times, to say like, oh wow, there's really a fixation on trying to wake up. And I'm fixated on trying to be an awake one, on trying to wake up so that I can avoid just what's here, which is fucking fear, sadness, anger, stories, beliefs. It's just another way to avoid. Spirituality is yet another fixation. Awakening non-duality is another fixation that has to be moved through, that has to be contended with and confronted in an honest way. If you really want the truth, if you really want to know the truth of your being, all of that stuff has to be confronted. It's in the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of St. Thomas, probably my favorite spiritual text, and it just is such a clear pointer to truth. Nothing that, there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. And there is nothing covered that will remain undisclosed. That's the truth of this process. There is nothing that can be hidden. Everything comes to light. Everything. And it's shocking. It's shocking how much there is. Nothing will remain hidden. Any way that you hide, you can be fixated on, trying to be perceived a certain way by, telling little white lies. That's hiding. Nothing can be hidden. Do you tell the truth all the time? And that doesn't mean blurting out everything, every thought that comes up, every terrible thing you think about somebody, but in a moment, if somebody asks you a question, are you fully honest? Do you tell the truth, or do you keep some certain things disclosed? Maybe out of fear of judgment, or because you don't want to deal with somebody else's reaction. It's another way that fixation can manifest. Nothing will remain hidden. And there is nothing covered that will remain undisclosed. Everything comes to light. Every fixation must be faced. Every fear must be faced. Every story, every pattern that is continuing to replay itself. Everything. I think another line from that is, I don't remember exactly how it goes. If that which is in front of you becomes clear to you, then you will know the kingdom. I don't know the exact, it's something like that. I'm sure I'm getting that wrong, but like if you want to know the truth, figure out what's right in front of you. What's here? This. Is there truly an earnestness? Because what I find in people is that like they can say that they want to know the truth, but in reality, we don't want to look at our own bullshit. So then how much do you really want the truth? We want the truth, but we don't want to dig through our own bullshit. We don't want to be that honest with ourselves about the ways that we're hiding, about the things that we're fixated on. Because that would mean losing all orientation in life. All orientation goes. Every fixation goes. This versus that. Every way that there's a this versus that. All clinging goes. All aversion goes. Everything is confronted. Everything is allowed. That is what it means to wake up. That is the truth. That's awakening in the context that I use it in. It's not pretty, it's not spiritual, it's not shining, making yourself better. It's the truth. Like what's the truth? What are you hiding? In what ways do you still lie to yourself and to other people? Big or small ways. It can be tiny ways. The tiny ones are the sneakiest ones. You know, holding your tongue, telling a little white lie. How much do you value the truth if you don't tell the truth 100% of the time in your life? How much do you value the truth and learning the truth of your being and coming to embody the truth of your being if you're not willing to really confront all of your fixations and the fear that's actually lying underneath? It takes a great deal of courage. So, you know, just in the example of health, like, yeah, health issues may still arise here. Pain may still arise here. But there's no longer suffering in that. Pain is not the same as suffering. Challenge is not the same as suffering. There's a full freedom. Like, there's no longer a belief that anything should be different than it is. There's no resistance. To whatever's happening. And there's ways that just keeps getting shown deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You know, new layers come, and then there's an opportunity to be like, let's meet this, let's meet this. This too, this too, this too, this too. This too is it. This too is God. This too is God. This too is God. If oneness is the reality, if non-duality, not two, is the reality, it's all it. It's all God. Can't be otherwise. So everything that you hate, everything that you point to and think is bad, that's it too. Everything that you resist, that's it too. That's all it. And it's coming to know yourself as that, as God, not in an egoic way, because there can be no more claiming anymore. It's not, hi Jennifer, I'm God. It's just obvious that I am that. And then everything becomes that. It's like, oh, that person is that. That bird is that. That piece of trash is that. That politician that I hate is that. That doesn't mean that you have to condone it, but can you love it? Can you see it as God, as a manifestation of God? Everything that you hate, everything you resist, everything that you push away, every part of yourself that you avoid, that's it too. And in coming to know God, coming to embrace those things is an embrace of that, of God, of awakeness, of the truth of what you are and what everything is, for lack of a better way to say that. So fixation is an opportunity. It's a big opportunity if you're willing to be really honest with yourself and dig underneath the surface. So the surface is looping in stories and stressing about something being a certain way, and just be honest with yourself about like what takes up a lot of my mental bandwidth. And there you'll find a fixation, an opportunity. To dismantle another layer of who you take yourself to be, of your own falseness, of your belief that something is a certain way or should be a certain way. A belief about yourself or about reality, about the world, about what you know. It's the crumbling of everything you think you know. I think that's it. Have fun out there.